Hello and welcome to the channel Chadify, where we rate people honestly and provide them with incredible Looksmaxxing insight. Today, I will rate 3 random people off of the subreddit called AccuratelyRateMe. Then, I will Chadify them to see what they would look like if they were at the level of an 8 out of 10 in terms of attractiveness. First off, I must recite a quick disclaimer. I mean to neither disrespect or put anyone down with this video. I will keep it brutally honest while providing constructive feedback for individual Looksmaxxing improvements. This is all to help you guys. Additionally, I will be employing Waffles' face rating criteria as I believe it currently is the most accurate and an unbiased method. His YouTube will be in the description if you want to check out his videos on the mathematically perfect male face. I found that on Reddit, it's extremely inaccurate and people are extremely harsh with the ratings, and as a result, this is why I'm making this video. Alright guys, here is face number 1. He's 23 years of age. There's the side, front, and then the other side there. Awesome. We're going to break down in his best features and his flaws here. First of all, he has a lengthy ramus. In fact, it undercuts his mouth. This is a very good thing in terms of jawline. You don't want this to be very short. It doesn't provide much volume for the jaw, and it's less masculine. And you can see it right here too, that is very long, and it makes his beard actually look pretty good as well. He has tight hyoid skin, which is very, very beneficial. You do not want this to be sagging. Face number 1 absolutely has good, healthy skin in terms of elasticity. Furthermore, he has a neutral eyebrow tilt. This is a very attractive trait. Neutral or positive is very good. Negative is not. Furthermore, face number 1 is young. He has tons of time to Looksmax and have the fruits of his labor materialize into benefit his life. On to the flaws. Unfortunately, he has a higher gonian angle than is deemed attractive normally. Typically 115 to 125 degrees is optimal, so this angle would ideally come up more in this area. When it's lower like this, it can be a more feminine trait or just flat out kind of long and wrong. But in his case, it's not a huge flaw because he's about 5 degrees away from being in that optimal area. Face number 1 has a curved and recessed mandible. Ideally, you want to have a straight mandible. This will provide much more masculinity and a much more pronounced jawline. For face number 1, this is unfortunately not the case, as you can see that clear and pronounced curve. Unfortunately, this previous thing that we were just talking about can also lead to a recessed and rounded chin. These two things typically can be interchangeable, and not in all cases, but for this face number 1, he also has a recessed and rounded chin, and you can see it is not protruding forwardly grown out where it should be. Furthermore, he has some jaw asymmetry. This side is a bit more round than this side. Another flaw that face number 1 has is his chin to philtrum ratio. His philtrum is very long relative to his chin. Ideally, you want a 1 to 2.25 ratio. The bigger that the chin is relative to the philtrum, the more masculine and dominating the face will look. Furthermore, face number 1 has a narrowing lower third. This also takes away from that masculine dominant appearance. It makes his jaw look that much more weak and less pronounced. His mid-face ratio is a major flaw, unfortunately. It is nearing a 1.2 to 1 ratio, meaning that he has a very long mid-face. Typically, you would want a 1 to 1 ratio here. Face number 1 also has an oversized nose, but this is a very minor flaw for men, and I wouldn't overstate it. His eyes, unfortunately, are too close set. You want about 1 eye width apart for your eyes. In his circumstance, however, that is only 72% of 1 eye width apart. He has too much upper eyelid exposure, which is also not attractive. You want as minimal as you can of any exposure in the eyelid region. He also has negative canthal tilt, which is not attractive for the eyes. He has some eye bag exposure. In terms of health, face number 1 may have some hair recession already. Some people do have a natural Norwood 1 or 2. It just happens, like that's how they're born. So I'm not going to say that this is necessarily for sure, but in this picture here and this one as well, it looks like there is some recession occurring already. Furthermore, face number 1 has a thin neck, which is not doing him any favors, and in fact is probably one of the reasons for his posture not being that great, leading to a lot of the problems in his jawline. Currently, he is sitting at a 4 out of 10. He's a sub 5, but he has potential despite some of his major flaws. Face number 1 clearly needs orthodontics, whether that's braces or some sort of thing to bring this piece of bone, this whole jawline, to bring it forward, to create forward growth. This would immensely affect his attractiveness and potential in the future. He also needs to lift some weights. Building this neck of his would have a valuable effect on the rest of his features. It's been shown in Wheat Waffles videos that this is an absolutely key attribute to attractiveness, even in the face region, which is not even connected, you would think, to your muscles. His lower area of muscle, like there is muscle here, it would grow wider. Time to Chadify face number 1. I think there's a few different things we got to say before we actually do this. So the previous Looksmaxxing advice that I gave is extremely dependent on budget. It is highly dependent on budget because basically anyone in the world could become an 8 if they were a 5, in my opinion. However, the budget in order to do so is extremely high. For most people, without spending a lot of money on surgery or weird interventions, they might go from a 5 to a 6.5. That is realistic. But to get to a 7 or 8 will likely involve surgery and a lot of money spent. This is the reason why Looksmaxxing has a range. For Looksmaxxing on this video, for each of the faces, it really just depends because they're all at different starting points and it's highly dependent on so. I'm giving simple advice for Looksmaxxing on this video. However, when I do in fact Chadify them, I will exaggerate this process so you can see what an infinite budget looks like. So here we go. Face number 1. Chadify completed. So you can see that this face is a much more attractive looking face than the previous. You can see how much it moves, how much it changes from step 1 to step 2. You can see that all the negative features kind of wash away. And I think this is pretty incredible just to see how much of a difference it really is. And I think that's probably the real benefit of it, is just showcasing, holy crap, that's what a Chad looks like. Some people are going to bring up, why would you want to Chadify this far? Like, why would you take this guy's face and put it this much into like the future of Chadification? Why would you Looksmax it beyond what is possible? Well, first of all, like I said before, I believe it is possible. It just takes a huge budget. Second of all, I'm not necessarily trying to show feasibility here. Like I said, not every single person is going to achieve an 8 level of attractiveness. It depends on starting point, and if you begin as a sub 5, it will be extremely difficult to become an 8. The point of showcasing these Chadified faces is to show and to see what women actually are wanting. It is also to show you what you would look like if you were an 8. Many men are delusional of where they stand on the attractiveness scale. Many lowball and even more exaggerate. This Chadification process finally shows an unbiased visual representation of what Chad looks like. In summary, there will no longer be confusion where people's attractiveness lies. If someone thinks they are an 8 when in reality they are a 5, it will become quite obvious they aren't when they actually see what their 8 looks like. Face number 2, age 20. Let's see it. There's the front. There's his side, and there's his other side. Oh yeah. All right. Face number 2, you're going to see, at first glance, you can see flaws. Like his skin is a major flaw. Major. However, the more you look at him, the more you see incredible features as well. Let's start off with the good. He has a lengthy ramus just like the previous face, which undercuts his mouth slightly. Tight hyoid skin means he's lean, he's healthy, doesn't have any fat. Ideal gonian angle, mandible, and there's the ramus. 120 degrees and it looks extremely good on him. Straight mandible, there's no curve like the previous face. Trapezoidal jaw, another thing that the previous face did not have. You can see that basically it's angular and fits really well into the shape of a trapezoid. One minor thing to note is that his chin might be a little bit more narrow than ideal because typically you want 1/3 on this side, 1/3 here, and 1/3 there. He is the ideal mid-face ratio 1:1. He has a great face height to width ratio. Basically, the width is extremely big relative to the height, which creates a masculine and dominating effect. Face number 2 has minimal upper eyelid and upper eye exposure in general. He has a positive eyebrow tilt. That's like exactly what you want. That creates that absolutely epic look, that super angular anime kind of feeling. This guy has it. That deserves a star right there. That is one of his best features. And furthermore, he has healthy hair. It's thick, no recession, looks great. And finally, he's young. He's only 20 years of age. Any Looksmaxxing he does now will permanently affect his future for many decades to come. Flaws. He has a major flaw that's holding him back out of the three of them. Acne. And I'm not trying to be mean, I'm not trying to disrespect him. I used to have it myself, and taking Accutane was the best decision of my life. He has a thin neck. If he wants to have a more masculine, better frame in general, building up that neck would be a great idea. He has a hooked nose. It's a little bit round, but that is so minor that I don't even know if it is a problem. It's a minor flaw. He has a small upper lip, which is also a minor flaw. He has light eyebrows. That could be worked on. And he has a slight vertical eye height asymmetry. His left eye is a little bit lower than his right, which took a little bit of viewing at first for me to notice. Basically, this guy is a 5 out of 10, but it is worth noting this rating is mainly due to skin quality drastically decreasing his attractiveness. Realistically, with clear skin, face number 2 is in the 7 or Chad-light territory. It might seem drastic giving him a 5 for acne, but put yourself into a female lens. They judge skin quality harshly. With Accutane, this cystic acne ordeal would likely be fully resolved. Furthermore, if phase 2 were to begin lifting weights, it would have an extremely positive impact on attractiveness as his neck and jaw would thicken further. Acne fixed, there you go. So you can see how much of a drastic difference it would have on his appearance. Time to Chadify. There he is to begin with. Look at his face. I think it's worth noting that less features move than face number 1, which basically shows that he's closer to a Chad than face number 1. His eyes are pretty much in the right place, his lips just get a bit thicker, his jaw looks not even that much different. Face number 2 is a Chad light with good skin, and when he's Chadified, it is within scope and reach for him. Face number 3, let's get on with this guy. Here's the front of his face. Here's the side of it. Looks kind of really serious in this, doesn't he? Here's the other side of his face. And wait for it. Smiles. See, he should be smiling much more than he is, I think. He has a great smile. All right, lengthy ramus. This guy has the longest ramus yet. That provides a very masculine baseline for his jawline. Tight hyoid skin, potentially the tightest out of everybody's so far. There's no sagging at all. Ideal gonian angle, 115 degrees. This is an extremely masculine gonian angle. It's almost going onto that kind of lower threshold. He's a straight mandible, and he has extreme forward growth of his jaw. His chin and everything just projects outward. He's a trapezoidal jaw like none other that we rated previously. It perfectly fits. This is perfect thirds. He has a perfect mid-face ratio 1:1. and he has a great face width to height ratio. Again, really wide, like the previous face, not quite as much, but pretty close. He's a neutral eyebrow tilt, which is very attractive. Solid neck size. This is the first guy out of our three that actually looks like he lifts a bit of weight. And finally, this is a random trait that I think is overlooked in a lot of black pill Looksmaxxing looksism videos. His smile actually looks really good. Flaws. He has very thin lips in general, and this is definitely a small flaw that is holding him back. Light eyebrows. They're definitely too light, and if you could darken them, that would be a very beneficial thing. He's a thin nose. It almost looks a little bit weird. The like holes are kind of small. Ideally, I would say that this green line is a better area that it could come out to, but again, it's a very small flaw. And he has a bit of upper eyelid exposure, which is probably one of his bigger flaws that he has. His biggest flaw is actually the receding hairline. It looks pretty evident at this point, and this would have a major impact on his attractiveness long term. He should probably get that in order soon. Finally, he is beginning to age. That means that Looksmaxxing that he does at this point on is going to have less of a permanent impact than the previous two faces. And that is a flaw in my opinion. However, he's a 7 out of 10 Chad-like territory. Now, let's see what he looks like with infinite budget, and let's bring him to the 8+ territory. Boom. Again, because he was a Chad-like to begin with, things don't move as much as you would expect, you know? He doesn't look too much different. His lips are a bit thicker, his nose is a bit wider, you can tell the holes are a bit bigger. His eyebrows are darker, like I said, and his hair comes down quite a bit, because his hairline, you can tell on the previous photos, is that it was receding. However, very minor stuff really in the grand scheme of things. He looks pretty similar to what he looked like before. In summary, this is the Chadification channel where we showcase what people can do with their faces. Again, look at the changes, right? Faces number 2 and 3 on the, this is 2 and this is 3. These two faces change less. Things move less because they looked better to begin with. Face number 1 has the most drastic changes because he is a sub 5 to begin with. This is how it works in life. It's not always fair. Everyone starts at a different point, but anyone can become a Chad if they have the money to do so. And I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you liked it, please show me support in the comments as it helps the YouTube algorithm. If this channel grows and people really like these videos and this content, I'll consider making a Fiverr where I rate and Looksmax you into Chads so you can see what it would look like with an infinite budget. Thank you very much, and I'll talk to you guys next time.